Mrs. Kate at the Library of Whispers, and today we're going to do some reading from one of my newest books. It's the National Geographic history book, An Interactive Journey, with 20 removable facsimile documents. Now, I've already done a browse through of this book, so I will put the link to that video in the description. So I thought what we would do is we will read through the book section by section, starting at the beginning. I shall use my pointer. So it starts with the beginnings of man, goes right through to the space stations. There's an introduction, but we'll leave that for now. And we shall go straight to the beginnings of man. The solar system in which the Earth lies came into being 4.7 to 4.6 billion years ago out of the gas clouds and dust left over from the formation of the Sun. The Earth itself began to form 4.5 to 4.4 billion years ago, subject to heat and pressure so intense that it was at first a molten planet. The earliest stage of Earth's history is known as the pre-Cambrian period, divided into three separate sections: the Hadean, Archean and Proterozoic. Earth's formation. It was during the first period, the Hadean, that Earth was formed, began to cool and fell into a regular orbit around the Sun. The cooling process gave rise to the Earth's first atmosphere, which consisted of gases produced by the constant eruptions on the surface, but did not contain any free oxygen. The cooling of the Earth's crust also produced vast clouds that gave out the enormous volume of rainwater required to create the oceans of the world. This led to the Archean period from 4 to 2.5 billion years ago, which saw the first appearance of life on Earth, initially in the form of simple bacteria. By the beginning of the Proterozoic period, simple algae were beginning to photosynthesize and create oxygen. This period also saw the formation of the first supercontinent, known as Rodinia, about 1.1 billion years ago. So let's have a look at some of the images in this one. This is a photographic simulation which gives us an idea of what the Big Bang might have looked like as the universe was formed out of gas clouds. And here is a reconstruction skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which was the largest of the carnivorous dinosaurs. Life forms. The end of the Proterozoic period and the beginning of the Paleozoic era, 542 to 251 million years ago, saw a massive upsurge in new forms of life, as shown in the fossil record. The Cambrian explosion led to the development of most of the major animal groups that survive today. While many of Mesozoic, 250 to 65.5 million years ago. During it, reptiles developed into dinosaurs, the dominant species of the era, which came to an abrupt end with a mass extinction some 65.5 million years ago. It marked the end of the Paleozoic era and the commencement of the Cenozoic era, which continues to the present day. This period saw Earth's continents drift to the positions they currently occupy, while the appearance of the dinosaurs led to the rise of the mammals, most notably our own species, Homo sapiens, as the dominant class of creatures. Demise of the dinosaurs. Around 65.5 million years ago, many of the species that had developed during the Cambrian explosion were wiped out, including the dinosaurs. This event, known to scientists as the Cretaceous Tertiary Extinction Event, or KT extinction, from the German, wiped out some 85% of the species alive on Earth. Its causes are uncertain, but one plausible theory is that a massive asteroid or comet hit the Earth, creating a mass cloud of vaporized rock and steam in the atmosphere, blocking out the sun and causing a catastrophic drop in temperature. This would have caused many plants to die out, disrupting the food chain, possibly causing a mass extinction. And then we go on to the earliest humans. The human race belongs to the genus Homo, which first appeared around 2.5 million years ago. The earliest member of this genus, Homo habilis, developed in Africa and used simple tools. Homo ergaster, who existed some 1.65 million years ago, developed more complex tools, including axes and cleavers, and also spread beyond Africa for the first time. It was not, however, until the time of Homo erectus, some 1.8 to 1.5 million years ago, that man spread throughout Asia in any kind of numbers. The first known Europeans were Homo antecessor or Homo heidelbergensis, dating from some 800,000 years ago. Another species of Homo, the Neanderthals, also thrived in Europe from 200,000 to 25,000 years ago, when they finally became extinct, with their place taken by Homo sapiens, or modern humans. And this picture up here shows a Cambrian trilobite fossil, which was excavated from the Margam Formation of Utah in the USA. So let's skip to the next section. So now we go on to the Sumerians, and their dates are circa 3200 to 1700 BC. The Sumerian civilization flourished in the region that is now southern Iraq, and is one of the earliest known civilizations in world history. The land was very fertile, sitting between two great rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, which gave the This facilitated exchange of ideas, culture and learning, and the growth of trade developments, which led to the creation of writing of a type known as cuneiform around 3,500 BC, and many new inventions including the wheel and the plough. So here we have a map of Mesopotamia drawn in 1458. The level of detail is evidence of enduring European interest in the region. City-states. Cities were at the centre of Sumerian life. Easily fortified, they allowed people to trade with one another in a centralised location. By 3200 BC, Sumer was divided into several city-states, which competed for political power. Each contained a temple dedicated to a patron god, the worship of whom was a central aspect of Sumerian life, with priests exercising great power within the city. Each city had its own religious hierarchy, and each god's popularity was tied to the power of the city with which it was associated. Sumerian temples took the form of ziggurats, huge monuments built in the shape of a terraced pyramid. Gilgamesh is the most famous of Sumerian kings. He was the fifth king of Uruk, according to the Sumerian king list, and ruled around the year 2700 BC. Little is known about the historical figure, and he is better known through the Epic of Gilgamesh, a long poem describing his relationship with Enkidu, a friend with whom he undertakes many adventures. After Enkidu dies, Gilgamesh dwells upon his sense of loss, begins a search for immortality. In the mythology of the Mesopotamian region, Gilgamesh is shown as being a godlike figure with incredible strength who built a wall around the city of Uruk in order to defend his people. Okay, so let's go on to the next section. And now we find the ancient Egyptians, and their dates are circa 2575 to 657 BC. For over 2 millennia, ancient Egypt was the most advanced and influential power in the Mediterranean region. Its legacy in mathematics, astronomy, medicine and architecture profoundly influenced the great cultures next 7